I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Russian Federation.
Mr. President, GA plenaries on each fresh incident of the U.S. using its veto in the Security Council on Gaza have become ever more distressing. It seems that we are not living in the real world, but rather in some surreal, nightmarish parallel universe. For the fourth time now, the UN General Assembly is meeting to hear the absolutely spurious justifications by the U.S. of its latest move to block any calls to end violence in the Palestinian-Israeli conflict zone. We've once again heard from the U.S. delegation about the alleged effective efforts of American diplomacy on the ground, which no one, including the international community, is supposed to interfere with. The outcome of these efforts is well known. In Gaza, a slaughter is continuing. Over 5 months of escalation, more than 30,000 have died. This is an unprecedented number of civilian casualties, unseen since the end of the Second World War. The absolute majority of those killed are civilians, many of them women and children. The number of injured has exceeded 70,000. The scale of this humanitarian disaster is growing. According to the UN Senior Coordinator for Humanitarian Affairs, about 700,000 people out of the 2.4 million inhabitants of Gaza are now on the brink of starvation. These figures are shocking. The situation is worsened by Israel's smear campaign against UNRWA, which plays a key role in providing essential aid to Palestinians in Gaza and in neighboring states. And this topic is one that we've discussed separately in this very room. An immediate end to the bloodshed in Gaza remains a humanitarian and moral imperative for the international community. It's no exaggeration to say that it is a litmus test for the humanity of our modern civilization. Russia has worked tirelessly to achieve this goal since the first days after the October 7th, 2023 attacks, which we unequivocally condemn. We believe that reacting to these attacks through collective punishment of Palestinian civilians is unacceptable and is a violation of international law. On October 16th of last year, we presented to the Security Council our first draft resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We all know how discussions evolved in the Council on this topic afterward. All draft resolutions with similar calls, as well as subsequent efforts in this direction, were constantly blocked by the U.S., which time and again, coldly, without any hesitation, used their veto and thus gave Israel carte blanche for further annihilation of Gazans. On February 20th, a similar fate befell the draft from our Algerian colleagues. It was a worthy, well-crafted document for which the Algerian delegation, on behalf of the Arab group, held all consultations needed in good faith. Mr. President, this current unprecedented outbreak of violence in Gaza is largely the result of a long-standing impasse in the Middle East peace process, caused in part by the efforts of the U.S. to monopolize mediation efforts to stop the work of the international quartet of mediators, the U.S., Russia, the EU, and the UN, and further its own selfish interests and impose them on the countries of the region. What's happening in Gaza obviously shows what we have been warning about for years. A resurgence of large-scale confrontation and violence in the region will continue inevitably until, through collective efforts, we resolve the underlying causes of this long-standing conflict. That is to say, that we create a Palestinian state in accordance with SC and G resolutions. Palestinians must be able to exercise their right to create a state in the 67 borders and with its capital in East Jerusalem. Only this just approach based on international law can lead to lasting peace in the region. It's important for Council members to show resolve and unity to bring about an immediate ceasefire and restore peace. Our common goal is to help the parties establish direct dialogue during which they can resolve all disagreements regarding the final status of the Palestinian territories. We continue to support a lasting negotiation process on a UN-approved platform, which should then lead to the creation of a sovereign Palestinian state coexisting in peace and security with Israel. At the same time, we note that in West Jerusalem, there are differing opinions regarding the future of Gaza, and there are those who would like to maintain Palestinian divisions, to exploit their disagreements, and then blame a lack of a partner on the Palestinian side for the blocking of negotiations. We believe that it's necessary to ensure political and geographic unity in Gaza and the West Bank, without which the situation in the conflict zone will continue to present new outbreaks of violence, new victims, and further destabilization of the entire Middle East. To achieve this goal of Palestinian consensus, we held a meeting of representatives of leading Palestinian organizations in Moscow on February 29th and until March 2nd, during which parties continued their dialogue with the goal of achieving comprehensive national unity, including all Palestinian forces and factions within the PLO, which is the only legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. The Russian Federation is prepared to continue supporting constructive contacts with all parties involved, continuing to contribute to the settlement of the Palestinian-Israeli issue. First and foremost, we must end the bloodshed and prevent the crisis from consuming the entire region. Otherwise, this conflict will never be stopped. Thank you.